right, Psalm 43, let's call this one Why Truth, in this psalm that may roughly break down into two sets of pleas or prayers and two sets of questions that are somewhat similar to questions we saw back in Psalm 42. First of all, though, the pleas, he's going to start out by saying, vindicate me and defend my cause, O Lord, toward the beginning. And then toward the end, he's going to ask God to lead me and bring me to where we'll talk about later. But the two sets of questions, likewise, toward the beginning, he is going to ask, why have you rejected me? And why do I go about mourning because of the oppression of the enemy? That's toward the beginning. And toward the end, he's going to say, why are you cast down, O my soul? And why are you in turmoil within me? Two sets of questions that are almost literally the same to what he asked back in Psalm 42. The difference being this: back in Psalm 42, we recognize the way in which he seemed like he was having to endure torment or mocking all day from his enemies. In this psalm, it seems that he is dealing with an enemy that is described more by its character as opposed to its habit of mocking, understanding that when he asks God to vindicate and defend him, it's against an ungodly, deceitful, and unjust foe, which reminded me of something I heard from, ironically enough, Dave Chappelle not too long ago in an illustration I sometimes use around here, when he described his life behind the jokes, saying that it can be really exhausting to always have to reframe or restate the truth in the form of a joke. And so when I read this psalm, and it seemed like this psalmist was in, once again, a place where he was not sure why he was feeling cast down or in turmoil in his soul, I had to wonder whether or not it had to do with the fact that he was confronting a deceitful enemy. And much like we saw in Dave Chappelle, he was dealing with what we've described before as a prison of that enemy's fiction. Before we've described the way in which we can get locked in prisons of our own fiction, this psalm seems to describe the way in which we can become exhausted by having to reshape the truth to fit the fiction of others, and in the process, lose track of the way in which our inner peace is directly linked to our ability to freely speak truth, which might also make the wisdom in verse 3 a little bit more clear when he makes his second plea to God to lead me and bring me to his holy hill, something that we may see in Psalm 45, described as a place where someone who sounds an awful lot like the Christ rides out for the cause of truth, reminding me that New Testament writers, or at least one New Testament writer, is going to say that we have the obligation to speak the truth in love. But this psalm is reminding me that there are sometimes spaces that no matter how diplomatically or lovingly we state the truth, it's simply not going to be welcomed. And so in a time when the truth, no matter how gently or diplomatically it's stated, seems welcomed in fewer and fewer spaces, we probably don't have to wonder why there are more and more spaces in which our souls might feel like they are in turmoil within us. And so my prayer for you is my prayer for me, that we allow Psalm 43 to help us reevaluate why truth may be more linked to our peace of mind than we may think, when the psalmist says in verse 3, send out your light and your truth. Let them lead me. Let them bring me to your holy hill. Once again, a place where God has carved out a place that is safe for truth, creating both a refuge and a responsibility to allow him to transform us into people who no longer need truth reshaped into something that fits our fiction.